was something divine and terrifying. In their anger, the gods were capable of vomiting fire from the bowels of the earth, or causing lightning and thunder that burned down the forests. A long time passed before man learned to collect and nurture fire, and even longer to discover how to produce it. At that moment, the first shaman was born, the first man who was able to steal fire from the gods. It is estimated that man used fire domestically during the Middle Pleistocene, about 360,000 years ago. This fact became a determining factor in the development of humanity, which yet would have to suffer through 3 glacial eras. The concept of the hearth was born, the place around which the community gathered, the difference between raw and cooked food, between cold and warmth. With fire illuminating the darkness of the night, it became easier for man to defend himself against the wild beasts. The guardians of the fire, who still exist among some primitive groups such as the Pygmies of Central Africa, began to be considered as holy men with extraordinary powers. Questions regarding the meaning of his existence, about the origin of the powerful forces of nature, and little by little he created his own view of the world. To the first shamans, all things in their environment were animated. Men, as well as plants, animals, and objects, had spirits. They perceived incomprehensible energies to which they attributed divine origin. Thus were born the natural deities of the mountains and seas, forests and deserts, wind and rain. They interpreted the enigma of day and night as a constant struggle between the sun and moon gods, in which this great star asserts itself and becomes the king of all deities. The sun god triumphs over the darkness of the night and illuminates life. From the vantage point of his superior intelligence, man learned by observing other species. He imitated the habits of many animals, mainly those he elevated to the rank of totem, and presided over the spectacular show of life, totally absorbed in it. Which stalked him at every moment, has been another incomprehensible mystery since the beginning of time. The possibility of not being, of not existing, of disappearing forever was difficult to comprehend. The first shamans, who intuited the existence of parallel worlds through their sensitivity, began to consider the question of life after death. They developed numerous theories regarding transcendence and developed complicated techniques for appropriately equipping the dead for their final voyage to the great beyond. Mummification and burial with all sorts of objects ensured the survival of the deceased in the afterlife. The obligation to properly pay one's last respects to the dead and worship them led to funeral rites, many of which continue to be an enigma, such as the Peruvian cliff sarcophagi at Carajilla. The coffins of the Chachapoya culture, reminiscent of the Easter Island statues, gaze fixedly at a horizon that has remained unknown up to the present time. The worship of the dead reinforced group consciousness, the deceased remaining present to the group. In many places, the deceased are sent on their way with joy and admiration, such as among the Batonu of ancient Dahomey. Death and experiences related to it have served the shamans as their best means of learning. Saving others from death has given meaning to their main activities of curing and providing solace to the group. The need to pay proper respect to their dead has led some societies to make disproportionate sacrifices. Among the Toraya of the island of Sulawesi, funerals are a great event where the family of the deceased must sacrifice a large number of oxen to honor the memory of the departed and reassure their neighbors. If the deceased is dissatisfied, he will return and cause problems for the living. The most ancient references to shamanism bring us to southern Siberia and northern Mongolia. Here, many nomadic tribes live under the protection of the boreal forest, which sustains their religious beliefs in the shaman. In fact, the internationally used word shaman is actually of Manchu-Tungu origin, having entered into ethnological vocabularies via Russian. When the undergrowth of the taiga seems to catch fire from the last reflections of the sun, the shamans begin their invocations. In the 16th century, most of these nomadic tribes were converted to Tibetan Lamaistic Buddhism, but shamanism continues to be present. The main element in their ceremonies is the goatskin drum, the so-called peace drum. The enormous drumstick with which it is beaten personifies the flying horse that transports the soul of the shaman to the realm of the dead to do battle with demons. The shamans enter into a deep trance that facilitates their passage into the dimension of the spirit. In this state, they cure the sick, accompany the souls of the deceased to the great beyond, and protect the clan's livestock from diabolical entities. In order to perform their activities, the shamans need to attain an altered state of consciousness. In some cases, they bring the group into such a state. Trances may occur with or without possession. It is in African and Caribbean cultures that possession is most often employed. These are kinetic trances in which chanting and drums play the most important roles. The deities and spirits invoked possess the adherents and provide them with internal relief and tranquility. Throughout history, trances have helped man to free himself from his psychological and physical pressures and to achieve equilibrium. Liberation from the body allows him to realize a profound catharsis which strengthens his mental health. The shaman is also a healer, but not all healers are shamans. For a shaman to be able to exercise his influence over the sick, he must transport himself to the world of supernatural energies and demand their help. The sick, in this case an old Guinean woman, must believe in the skills of the shaman. The spirits possess the medium and decide on the treatment the old woman requires. Not all such trances last long enough to achieve an understanding of the spirit's plans. For this reason, repeated invocations may be needed until the process has been completed. Individuals experience the state of possession in different ways. At times, it can be traumatic. The possessed becomes subject to deformations and spasms. After the spirit is left, the person returns to a normal state. In general, people do not remember what has occurred. Sacrificial blood appeases the anger of evil gods. We're in southern Benin. This shoe ritual is dedicated to the god Varian, the god of smallpox. Many lives are lost among these people due to this illness. The purpose of the ceremony is to keep Varian happy so that he will not inflict them with smallpox. One woman is possessed by Musinyi, the spirit of the panther, who represents the black side of magic, namely witchcraft. Her movements imitate this deadly feline, which slowly approaches its prey to carry it to the dwelling of this terrifying god. At the foot of the cross on the tomb of Baron Samedi, a group of voodoo practitioners meets to perform a ritual. The Hungan, or priest, who is in a state of deep ecstasy, is willing to undergo any test, as the power of the Baron will protect him. The possessive trance will enable him to eat glass without injuring himself. In Haiti, voodoo practitioners enter into trances on a daily basis. In a Guinean ceremony on the beach of Limonade, a woman is possessed by Ersuli, a virgin of high stature in this hybrid religion. Here we see her stabbing herself with a small knife to demonstrate that she is invulnerable in this state. In the Muslim Mujarrad, participants enter into a deep, non-possessive trance by means of mortification. Self-discipline transports them into profound states of ecstasy, into states of altered awareness where they perceive another reality, a metaphysical sphere in which they become one with God. mortification and discipline is also practiced by Christians. In the Philippines, the faithful stab, impale, whip, and crucify themselves in imitation of Jesus Christ, mistreating their bodies as if they were an obstacle to encountering God. Since the beginning, since the caveman era, man has attempted to transport himself to a magical, parallel universe to meet his ancestors. Dance, together with low-frequency sound, is another medium to achieve altered states of awareness and trance. The Australian Aborigines use the didgeridoo in their chanting. This is a sacred instrument with origins in the era of dreams, when the serpent of the rainbow created the world. Its solemn sound is a call from the great beyond. The low-frequency sound of the drums, together with the high frequency of the maracas, affect the electrical activity of the brain. Percussion is the soul of Africa. According to the researchers Yilek and Ormestad, the most effective frequency to bring on a state of ecstasy is reached with drum beats of between 4 and 7 cycles per second. Ritual is unnecessary. In percussion performances, such as those of Mustafa of Ghana, Africans are able to attain a state of ecstasy. Dance is essential to attain a shamanic trance. Dr. Maite Tubia, who is a specialist in music therapy, speaks to us of the potent energies shamans liberate in dancing, like the Cuban Santerias who enter into deep trances. Shamans claim that the 7 most important spiritual channels of human beings are located among the vertebrae. Dancing creates harmony and balance in the body and helps unblock these channels through which the spirits may enter. The whirling dervishes are a clear example of kinetic trance without possession. The dancing Sufis of Turkey perform the sema with one hand open to the sky and the other towards the earth. Their whirling represents the planets, and they attain a state of cosmic ecstasy by repeating the sacred words, "There is only one God, and His name is Allah." On the shores of Lake Titicaca, at an altitude of 4,000 meters, the stones speak to us of shamans, of the great wizards who inherited the wisdom of the mysterious Tiahuanaco culture. Strange totemic faces carrying messages that are encrypted in a hieroglyphic vocabulary that is still unknown to us. Gigantic cosmic observatories where mystical meetings are held. We are in one of the most enigmatic regions on the planet. Only shamans are able to remain aware while in a state of ecstasy, between the world of the living and the immaterial dimension of the spirit. Before dawn breaks, the Andean wizards perform their offering rites to welcome Tata Inti, the sun god. The aromatic smoke rises to invoke Viracocha, who created the earth from this sun island. In the wizard markets of Andean cities, we find remedies for almost anything. Herbs, ointments, amulets, and magical elements that shamans use in their ceremonies, such as mummy skulls that increase the power of their altars. Highly essential for communicating with the beyond are the cacti of San Pedro, from which mescaline is extracted. Since remote times, the shamans have used hallucinogenic plants in order to reach the states of altered awareness needed to carry out their spiritual activities. Plants that contain soporific and hallucinogenic alkaloids make the transformation possible, a step into a separate reality, as defined by the Mexican anthropologist and writer, Carlos Castaneda.
Esterito de cañares, cuenta y hay por cuenta, nombre y hay por nombre, allí vamos hombre, vamos trabajando, vamos levantando.
Plants have always had their place in human development. Since time immemorial, man has gradually uncovered the secrets of the forest. Plants that cure, and sacred plants that have been venerated by ancient cultures. Mushrooms, roots, vines, and fruits that contain entheogenic substances which facilitate communication with the gods. The shamans of the Amazonian tribes employ numerous entheogenes such as ayahuasca, yopo, the psilocybins, and epena. These Sanima Indians of the Orinoco Basin sniff sakona so that they may encounter the guardian spirit of their totem animal and see the future, diagnose illnesses, and prevent tragedies. Writers, anthropologists, and scientists, such as Aldous Huxley, Gordon Wasson, Evan Schultz, and Albert Hoffman, have studied ancient religions and shamanic intoxicants in depth, arriving at surprising conclusions regarding the use of these plants of the gods, whose effects are strange, mystical, unusual, inexplicable, and always disconcerting. To the majority of the Amazonian Indians, the real world is that which is revealed under the influence of these hallucinogenic plants. Daily life is merely an illusion. Thousand-year-old cultures have accumulated extensive knowledge of the jungle pharmacopoeia generation after generation. They know how to find remedies for both body and soul. For example, These Sanima shamans extract from the bark of the yaqui tree a hallucinogenic alkaloid which transports them to the realm of their ancestors. In a state of trance, and from remote psychedelic regions, Amazonian shamans see the malevolence in an illness and confront it and eliminate it from the body of the afflicted. In the heart of the African jungle, the Banjis, or follower of the Bwiti cult, ingest the root of the iboga and dance with their guardian spirits. The root of the sacred Bwiti plant, the Tabernanthe iboga, contains a powerful entheogenic alkaloid, ibogaine. The Banjis consume it during their ceremonies, which last all night. They enter into deep trances of possession that transport them to the world of the spirits under the control of the Njima, as the shamans of this cult are called. The Bwitis stage a syncretic Catholic communion in which they consume iboga. This is a religion with a complex liturgy that blends the ancient African cult of the dead with the Catholic religion. The principal liturgical element is the sacred harp, which represents Banyoku, the first woman who ate iboga and was able to see further, as they term it. These are the first pictures that it has been possible to film of the secret ceremonies of the Bwiti of Equatorial Guinea, where the Banjis are persecuted. In a country where power is maintained through traditional witchcraft rituals in which human flesh is consumed, the Banjis are in a struggle with their ultra-sensitive world against these practices of anthropophagy, which are difficult for Westerners to understand. In their temples, hidden deep within the jungle, the Banjis receive communion with Iboga and encounter God. The echo of their beautiful litanies is transmitted under the green vault of the jungle, becoming a magic spell against death. Long before the arrival of the Bantu people in Central Africa, the Pygmies were already there. And long before the Bantu knew of Iboga, the Pygmies were already using it. The few groups of Pygmies that still inhabit the heart of Africa live practically in the Neolithic era. They may have been using Iboga for hundreds of thousands of years in their shamanic rites to encounter the spirit of the forest, which they consider their god. The shaman selects the fittest members of the tribe to consume this entheogen and make the journey in quest of answers. In southern Benin, the facades of the Vodum temples are decorated with the portraits of great masters and with the deities of this African religion. Here novices receive instruction. During their period of initiation, they may only leave the monastery once each year. They are called the Dahomey children and are considered completely taboo. No one may speak to them, much less touch them. To the faithful, the onomatopoetic language they speak is not of this world. In the initiation to the Bwiti, the bongo carries the soul of the aspirant downriver to the world of the spirits. After the ritual has been completed, the child revives as a renewed being, as a Banji. The Kambo, or bishop, pricks him with a needle in an act that symbolizes his physical death. All shamanic initiations have the symbolic significance of death and resurrection. In this case, the aspirant begins to eat Iboga in large quantities to travel to the other world as his symbolic death. It opens the mind, as they say. On his return, they will give him a new name. Some initiations are very severe, such as those of the Palo de Monte, also called the Law of Ocha, the dark reverse side of Cuban Santeria. The practitioners of Palo de Monte work with the dead and invoke powerful evil spirits. The sacrifices they make to provide their gods with drink are cruel and bloody. They hold their ceremonies in secret because Cuban society takes a dim view of them. In Tibet, at an altitude of approximately 5,000 meters, nomadic peoples such as the Kambasando or Golok live anchored in a remote time. They practice the yellow religion, as they call Lamaism, which contains reminiscences of the ancient Bonpo religion that is based on shamanic practices. They are a sensitive people who are very perceptive of the energies of nature. It's not unusual to encounter locations that have been marked as sanctuaries because of their special magnetism. On the walls of the canyons, we see petroglyphics that speak of the lotus flower, the symbol of the divine being. The headwaters of rivers are mysterious locations where the rocks and crags are engraved with the sutras of mystics. They are very religious. In each of the nomadic tents, there is a tanga, before which they kneel to pray at least 4 times each day. Tibetan nomads consult traditional shamans. Tibetan medicine is based on the 4 Buddhist medical tantras, which describe some 84,000 illnesses for which 2,000 different remedies are given. In the forests of the Tibetan Plateau, there are 2,890 species of plants, 160 species of animals, and 74 types of minerals, all of which are used in their curative compounds. In the heights, on the slopes of the sacred mountain range Apolobamba in Bolivia, we encounter the caravans of the Kayawaya. They are nomadic shamans who travel throughout South America, curing the sick. They know the botany of the Andes to perfection. The Kayawayas were the first to successfully use quinine in the treatment of malaria. When they arrive at a village, they attend to the sick, who may have been awaiting their arrival for months. There are those who claim that they are the heirs to the knowledge of the ancient priests of the enigmatic Tiahuanaco culture. Each patient explains the illness he is suffering from and gives the shaman a package of coca leaves. The shamans use these as oracles. In a ritual, they move them and spread them out to obtain a diagnosis. In every corner of the planet, there are shamanic practices based on wisdom accumulated over time. These ancient techniques continue to be applied to alleviate pain, to cure illness, and to prevent death. In Vietnam, hot glasses are used to treat physical traumas. The fire consumes the oxygen in the glass, which when it is placed on the skin, works like a suction cup. This technique is based on the length of time a glass must remain in place on each of the energy points of the body. In Africa, illness has a religious significance. It is always caused by the intervention of a spirit or by a spell. The shamans know a countless number of plant, mineral, and animal remedies which they use to effect physical cures. But no cure will work until they treat the patient with a soul medicine that will neutralize the spell they are under. Nothing is considered accidental. For example, they know that malaria is caused by a mosquito and that it may be cured with quinine. But the etiology of the disease lies in a spell that a third person has made to send the mosquito to the victim. Recently, some shamans have begun working in hospitals together with Western-trained doctors. When a patient has been cured, the shaman treats the spell that caused the illness. In this way, they prevent future afflictions of psychosomatic origin. People travel to traditional hospitals with all their belongings, including domestic animals. They never know how long it will take to be cured. To Africans, anything extraordinary is the result of the application of magic. The power and ability of this acrobat are granted by the powerful spirit that possesses him while he is performing the Agbaum dance. The Fawn Shamans of southern Benin exhibit their powers in the Sambeto ritual. The initiates raise the piles of straw, which appear to be strange objects that come to life with the sound of the tam-tam. These are public exhibitions that strengthen the authority of the wizards. To Westerners, these are only juggling tricks, although they do not always have an explanation. These piles of straw are consumed while appearing to dance to the sound of drums. No one could remain inside without getting burned. Perhaps what we are seeing are no mere tricks, but a small demonstration of the real occult power of Africa. But this occult power in Africa can become evil under the influence of the moon. Under the aegis of the night, black magicians use it to do harm. They invoke sinister spirits who demand fresh blood and cruel sacrifices before allowing them to use their power and direct it against innocent people. Witchcraft is the real scourge of Africa. In the deepest jungles of Africa, human sacrifices and cannibalistic banquets still take place. These people believe in the magical transference of anthropophagy. In this recreation, we see a Fang ritual called Ivu. The victim, bound and deranged from the inhalation of smoke from marijuana burning in a fire, is decapitated before the sacred cranium. Then they eat his viscera to rejuvenate themselves. In the African and Afro-American cults, the role of the fortune teller is of great importance in the struggle against witchcraft. Among the Cuban Santerias, the oracle resides in the Ifa, which is of Yoruba origin. They manipulate a complex binary code that determines the result of consultations. The celebrant shakes the seeds, and according to the number that remain in his left hand, he draws 1 or 2 lines of different length with his fingers. When the god Orula presents himself, they all kneel. The oracle is ready for consultation. Following the instructions of the oracle, the shamans do head-on battle with evil. These people have a profound belief in spells and may become ill or even die if they feel they have come under a spell. Exorcisms are daily events in these societies where the world of the dead interferes decisively with that of the living. In the traditional hospital of Catalina in Equatorial Guinea, a woman undergoes a cleansing to expel the spirits that possess her. The acolytes of Catalina place some knots of melomba, the shoots of a palm, where the patient feels the spirits are tormenting her. Then they chant the name of the warlock who cast the spell and close the knots to trap the evil. In this case, the name of the warlock is Vicente Baca. Here we see the eternal struggle of good against evil, of light against darkness. Exorcisms are carried out, as in Porto Novo, where the deities of the Agumbe, represented by believers wearing masks, emerge periodically from the voodoo monastery to walk through the city and protect it from misfortune. People fear and respect them. They demand their blessings and counsel and submit to the penances imposed. Perhaps all the things we have seen are mere inventions of man, who has been hungry for answers since the beginning of time, a self-deluding way to appease his ignorance. Perhaps they pay homage to nourish his arrogance, his puniness when confronted with natural forces that overwhelm him, despite his intelligence. Millions have perceived things that Cartesian thought denies. If they are right, then parallel shamanic worlds exist as separate realities that invisibly affect our existence. At the present time, there are no irrefutable answers, and man will continue to ask himself questions so long as the sun rises.